Well, welcome to the Hope Community Church vlog. My name is Matt and I lead Hope Community Church in Wigston. And I'm joined today by my friend Paul Gasky, also known to most people as Gasky. So Gasky, do you want to say hi?
Hi everybody, good to see you.
Why don't you introduce yourself, tell folk about your family and what you do and what you've done in life and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very briefly, I'm married to Sue. We have two daughters, Amy and Hayley. They're now married, live away. Amy's got three granddaughters and Hayley has two grandsons. So we've got five grandchildren. My background is in policing. I was a police officer for 30 years and then a civilian within the police service for 4 years. So I've been around a bit, and I now work for the national movement Christian Vision for Men as regional director for England North.
Amazing. And if you want to find out more about those, you can visit CVM online. You can Google them, and also the Edge network as well, and find out all the good stuff they're doing. So Gasky's agreed to share some of his story and his journey to faith. Why do you paint the picture of before you would have called yourself a Christian, you're in the police? What was your attitude to Christianity? What was your attitude to faith then?
Less than positive is the politest way to put it. I was working in the roughy-tufty world of policing, and yet on the rare occasions that I went to church under sufferance for weddings, baptisms and funerals and the like, I just found the whole thing completely irrelevant. And if I'm honest, I thought the people were out of touch. Particularly the men, I thought were weak and needy and needed a crutch. So my attitude was less than positive.
So you've gone from that as your kind of starting point to now you're running or you're leading a regional ministry in an organization that's involved, that's telling men particularly about Jesus. So how did you get from there to here?
Through experience, I think, is a simple way to put it. Throughout the bulk of my working life, I've seen so many men destroyed by sort of violence, drug reliance, alcohol abuse, you name it, I've seen it. And I never thought for one moment that I would potentially be in that situation. But that's what happened. And here I was, a successful police officer. I was working within the CID, a job that I loved. I was the top banana in the office. And by that, I mean I had the best detection rate, the most number of informants, the most number of arrests. I could drink anybody under the table. And the banter was incredible. I mean, there were different days, of course. But I wanted to be the top banana, and that was my driving force.
And how were you at this time? So obviously very successful at work. How were you in yourself?
Well, despite being a married man and having two small children, I pretty much behaved like a single bloke. And although I was a father, to be honest, I wasn't a dad. And I was so engrossed in my job that came first and foremost. But I didn't realise at that time how my job was affecting me. And there was something really key that was a trigger which sent me spiralling downwards, which I'll share if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. As I say, I was working in the CID, and in the sort of mid to late 90s, Leicestershire unfortunately had a number of murder inquiries in our county, and it was the policy then to get a team of detectives from around the force to form the incident room and deal with whatever it was. And every time this happened, I was crewed up with a guy. I'm not going to give his proper name. I'm going to call him John. But I was crewed up with a guy called John from Hinckley, and like me, he was a real party animal, really good old-fashioned detective, really good bloke and a good mate. And every time we were working together on these inquiries, we were crewed up, and it was great. And we used to joke, and this is not particularly funny, but we used to joke that the next murder inquiry we're assigned to will drag the body just outside of Leicestershire, so that they've got to deal with it and not us, which is not funny. But that got us through some difficult times. But I went to work one Saturday morning in 1995 to be called into the boss's office, and he told me that my mate John had taken his own life the night before, and only I knew this bit, because he actually took his life 100 yards across the border into Warwickshire. So our puerile gag of let them deal with it came to fruition, and I was the only one who knew that. And to say I didn't cope with it very well is certainly somewhat of an understatement. Times have changed, but the answer to everything was, back then, the answer was, let's go and have a beer and everything will be okay. And I'm not criticising anybody for that, that's just the way it was. But for me, it signalled, not only was I pressing the self-destruct button, I was leaning on it. So I started to drink really heavily. And what I tried to do, I'd worked out quite logically in my own mind, the only time I didn't feel in any pain was when I was asleep. But I couldn't sleep because of anxiety or whatever else. I just couldn't sleep. So I tried to induce sleep by any way I could. So that was heavily drinking. I was partying a lot, and all that goes with that. And I started to dabble in substances that you don't buy across the counter at Boots, mainly because I just wanted to sleep. But then I worked out, well, I decided I didn't want to be married anymore, so I walked out on Sue and the girls, and got nowhere to go. I sofa surfed. I slept in our office at work now and again, and occasionally I slept in the cell block. So I've got nowhere to go. And to say that I didn't like myself is somewhat of an understatement. So I came to the decision that perhaps the world would be better off if I wasn't around.
And so you're at a point now where you're the lowest you can go.
Oh, very much so.
And you feel like there's nothing to live for. So what happened then? What changed things?
Well, I didn't leave any notes. I didn't tell anybody. I just decided to end my life. And it was New Year's Eve, 1995, going into 1996, that I decided to jump from the railway bridge on Swain Street in the city. So I climbed on the wall, and I was literally one step from going over when I was aware of, it was like an inner voice, which I did write off as conscience initially. But this inner voice said to me, just remember how angry you were when John took his own life, so don't do it. And that sort of brought me to my senses, and I got off the wall, and I was trying to process what was going on. So after and I'll call it an unsuccessful suicide attempt, I found myself at the door of the vicarage, and he let me in, and I just broke down. I was a mess. I couldn't speak for an hour. I was just in a mess. So he took me home, and Sue allowed me in, and went to bed, and I fell asleep. And then I had what I can only describe as my worst nightmare ever. And in my nightmare, I was being pulled between two forces. On one side, there was just nothing, just pitch black. And on the other side was a tiny little speck of light. And I was being pulled between the two. Now, apparently, I was asleep, but apparently I was screaming out to be let go. And if I'm honest, I wasn't really fussed which side won, because I really believed I was going to be torn in two. Now, unbeknown to me, Sue, bless her, decides I'm going to pray. So she's praying over me as I'm going through this experience. And then in my nightmare, this darkness released its grip, and I was propelled towards this light. And the light got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until I was released into it. And it was a pure, blinding light, just pure. And I woke up and I was drenched through with sweat, and I was confused and trying to work out what I'd just experienced, because it was very real. And Sue then decided perhaps it is now the time to fetch a copy of the Why Jesus booklet that she'd surreptitiously hidden downstairs in her sewing basket. So when she left our bedroom, I became aware of another presence in the room. And in the corner, in the gloom of our bedroom, a figure held out his hands towards me and said, "Paul, just trust me." And I knew it was Jesus. I knew it was. The only way I can describe him as is as pure peace. Pure peace. And I knew it was Jesus. So it dawned on me instantly, Jesus, who I'd heard a little bit about, Jesus is real and he's very much alive and well. And I've got to trust him. So at 1:10 a.m. on Sunday, the 3rd of March, 1996, my life changed forever. In an instant, it changed forever. And it set me on my journey, because I didn't know anything about him. I knew he was alive, didn't know him. So that set me on my journey ever since in trying to find out about him and have that relationship with him. And I've got to be honest, my first Bible was a kid's Bible. And I'm not ashamed to say that, but I had to start from scratch. And I did the Alpha course twice, because the first time I don't suppose I got it completely. And then that set me on the course to where I am now. And
I mean, thank you so much for being so honest and sharing some, I guess, really hard things that you've gone through. And you say that started you on a journey to get you where you are now. With all that in mind, what does Jesus mean to you now?
That's a really easy one to answer. Everything. If it wasn't for Jesus, then I know, A, I wouldn't be alive, and I'd be just a distant memory in my girl's eyes, and I would have never have met my 5 grandchildren. So when I say to people that I owe Jesus everything, I mean it. I do mean it. And I want everybody to experience the freedom that comes from a relationship with Jesus. So that's why I do what I do.
Gasky, thank you so much. And I guess it's probably worth saying that if you're watching this and you've been particularly affected by any of the stuff Gasky said, then you can get in touch with us at Hope Church. You can email prayer@hopechurchwigston.co.uk. You can get in touch to our social media channels. But Gasky, can folk also get in touch with you? How would they best do that?
They can either contact me through the CVM office. That's Charlie Victor Mike, CVM. You never lose it. So that's paul.gask@cvm.org.uk. You can contact me there or via the Hope Community Church, of course.
Gasky, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your openness and sharing your story with us. I'm sure it will have helped and challenged and affected a load of people. So thank you so much.